Okay, try again. Okay, cool. So hopefully this works out. Okay, so we're gonna pass the owner ID value back, right? But what's a better way? What's a better option for the user to see, right? Because if I just see a user's ID, that doesn't tell me a whole lot about them. So what piece of information might what I want to display to the user to choose from? The name. Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna say owner.name right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look and see if that came out the way we wanted it to. Okay, cool. So there you go, create a new pet owner, and then I can choose from my drop down of users that I pulled from the database. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna just add in a submit button there. Okay, so if we refresh this, there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead. We know that it's gonna go to /pets. So let's go ahead and write this route real quick. We'll say at app.route/pets. Now, what else do I need to add since this is a since this is a form? Methods. All right, methods. There we go. Equals post. Perfect. Okay, and then we'll just say we'll call this the add pet method. And for right now, all I'm going to do is print request.form. And then we'll redirect back to that home page. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at the information that we get in. Okay, so we're going to finally let Steph have her pet. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, Ash, and there we go, Stephanie. So I hit submit. It's going to redirect. If I go look in here, there we go. It's right there. So you can see that the user's ID was 3, the breed was cat, name was Ash. Okay, so how now can we take this information and save it into the database? Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's start by writing our query. All right, so we're gonna say query, and this is just we're just gonna create a string for this, right? So what is how do I insert something into a database? How do I create a new row in a database? Insert. Then what? Into, then what I'm going to put here? Insert into what? The table name, right? Which in this case is pets, right? Then what do I do? Perfect, right? So with the column names, right? So I'm going to say name, breed, users, ID, created at, and updated at. Okay, so far that looks good. Then what's the last part? Add the values. Okay, now this is where we're going to do something a little bit different. Okay, so we have this string that is our query, but we need to add in some dynamic values. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're actually going to start giving, we're going to give these values a name instead of directly inserting the value. Okay, so here I'm going to say, we'll say name, and I put this colon in front of it. Okay, and we'll see what that does in just a second. Users ID, and then these last two we can just say now. Okay, so there's my query. All right, now how do I actually get the information from the form in there? I'm going to create a dictionary. And it can, both of these can be called whatever, right, by the way, right? We just choose query and data because that makes sense in this scenario. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this name that I typed right here as the key. And then I'm going to tell it which value it should be associated with, right? In this case, we have a request.form name. Same thing, breed. Request.form breed, and then users ID is that request.form users ID. Okay, does it make sense how the query and the data are connected? All right, the name here is the key here. All right, so I can say key name, right, and then I would need to change that to key name. Okay, so all it's going to do is it's going to take this information and insert it into there. All right, so the last step of this is to go ahead and we're going to use that MySQL query DB. And the first thing we're going to pass in is the query, just like before. But this time we're also going to include data as a second parameter, or second argument, excuse me. Okay, so up here we just had the query, right? We didn't add anything else. It was just a query. In this scenario, we ran the same, excuse me, we ran the same method, but also passed in a second argument called data. All right, so if we come look at this right here, QueryDB takes in a query, and then it sets data as none as the default value. However, if there is a value, then it will, or if we do pass something in, then it will use that. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and and then once that saves to the database, then it should redirect. Okay, and at this point, when it redirects, it runs this query again, so we should immediately see our new pet. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this. We'll refresh the page real quick. Okay, and to Stephanie, if I hit submit, there we go. This value is added into our database right away, right? So it did a couple things, right? It ran the insert query, then redirected up here, which executed this query again. Now, since there's new information in that table, it grabbed the newest information and included it here in our list of pets. Go ahead, Ethan.
What about the created and data automatically insert the data? Or?
Yeah, so we did these now guys right here, and so it's just going to directly translate that. Since there's no colon in front of it, it will just use that as a direct insert into the database, right? So if we come over to the pets, run this again, you can see there it is, and it used that now keyword to just grab the current date and use that as the value. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, and that's really all there is to connecting those, right? Now, so simple, okay? So, so let's go, let's do one more thing real quick. Let's add one more. Let's be able to, whoops. I want to be able to visit a specific animals page. Okay, so I'm going to create an app.route and say pet / and then we're going to use a URL parameter to go grab that specific pet. Okay, and we're doing this just so I can show you one more type of query, or how we would operate another query. Okay, so what we're going to do here is in the name, right there, we're going to wrap this name in an A tag. Okay, and we're on the URL is going to be /pet/pet.id. Okay, and then let's grab you. Oops. And we're going to put it on the end of this. Okay, so we haven't done anything with it yet, but that should make. I didn't finish this server.py guy. Pass for a second. Okay. Right, so you can see that this is now a link. Right, if I click on it, it's not, it says it doesn't found. The other thing, right, it should have an ID there. If I look at my code, why does it not have an ID? What was that, Blaine? Oh. We didn't grab the ID, right? In this we didn't include it, so let's go ahead and include that. So we'll say pets.id as, and we'll just keep it simple and have that be as an ID. Okay. So now when I refresh this page, not that page, this page. Cool. Let's go see if we can find an error. Pet ID and field list. All right. And that's plural. Cool. So now if I click on this, it says pet/2, which is what I was expecting, right? Based off of this URL that I wrote, pet/URL parameter pet ID. Doesn't do anything yet, but that's all right. So I'm going to go ahead and let's create, nope, not that. We're going to create a new file. There we go. And we'll call it pets.html. And this is just going to be like a dedicated pet page. All right, so let's go ahead, render template, pets.html. All right, now given this information, or if I were to run a query just getting one specific pet, what would that query look like? I want to get one specific pet. Okay, what was that? Okay, select. Let's just go ahead and select everything from pets, and then so I know I want to get one specific pet, right? Whoever's ID was passed in there. How might I do that in this scenario, or with this MySQL DB connection? Okay, where that is that the that you're talking about? You guys are so smart. Cool. What do I need to change here in order to make this work, though, to make it dynamic? Now, there's one thing that's missing from this in order for us to be able to actually use this. Not an update. This is still just pulling that information, right? But I need this to be dynamic, right? As of right now, this will actually look for an ID that is equal to the string pet_ID. Colon, right? We need to put that colon in front of it so that we can then add a value, right? So then our data, even though it's a simple data set, we're going to say pet ID is equal to this pet ID value that's getting passed in. Okay. Cool. And let's go ahead and let's grab the, oh yeah, that looks good. So we're going to say pet is equal to MySQL.queryDB, and then we pass in that query and that data again. Okay. And now we're going to say my pet is equal to pet. Now let's go ahead and I'm just going to, for now, all I'm going to do is just print out my pet so that we can see what this information looks like. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh this page. Cool. Now, even though it's only one value, you'll notice that it still comes in what data type? A list, right? So it's still a list with just one item in it. So in this scenario, since I know there's always just going to be one item, I'm going to say my pet is equal to pet at index of 0, just so I don't have to loop through a list of a single item. Okay. Now I can go ahead and say, right, I can come in here and say my name is pet.name. And then I am a pet.breed. And we can even throw something in here and say I was born on pet.created at. Okay. So if we go ahead, refresh this page. That's not what it was. I called it my pet. And there you go. So now if I go back to this page and I click on Severus, there you go. You can see all that information. Click on Ash. Cool. All right. So there's a few different things, right? Now we didn't do any of the delete or update, right? But once again, we have all the information we need to in order to be able to do that. If we're just running a query with no variable information on there, we can just pass in a string query and then we're done. As soon as we need to add in some sort of variables, we need to use this data dictionary so that we can give it a key that will then insert the correct value in there when it executes that function. Okay. You're now full stack developers. Woo! Any questions about what we've done? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Carlos.
The refresh, is that handled by the server or from the query?
When I refresh the page, it runs the query again. Yeah. So, for example, right when I redirect here, the refresh is happening because it hits this page and runs a query and pulls all the database from there every single time, right? So when I when I come back and we go ahead and add in a new pet, which is going to be a lion. Okay. We'll call this, yeah, cool. So we hit submit. All right. It looks like it's just appending to the bottom because nothing else is moved. But what's actually happening is it's reloading the entire page and everything's in the same place. We just have one more entry, if you will, at the bottom. And so it looks like it's just appending it to the bottom. It's actually refreshing the entire page and reprinting all that stuff out. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
So you were using a different port for the MySQL server, right? For the database, or what was it that was a different port?
No, we're using 3306.
And so the local host is using 5000.
Very good question. Very good question. Okay, so we have two different ports that are operating here, right? One, the 3306 is the port that our server is on, or excuse me, that our database is on. Okay, 3306 is the port that the database is on. 5000 is the port that Flask is on. So Flask, if we want to open that page, we do everything on port 5000. If we want our Flask application to communicate with our database server, we use that port 3306. Okay, so there is two ports. This one is for Flask to MySQL, right, for that connection that we have. And then 5000 is for, right, it tells us when we restart this every time, right, 5000 is, I guess just the first time we started. Let's restart it. All right, so 5000 is the port that Flask is going, we can access this Flask application. So everything will stay the same here, right? We're still going to be on port 5000. But the communication between our Flask application and the SQL database is happening on port 3306.
So is that communication like two servers, or?
In this scenario, it's all happening on your computer, but essentially, yeah, you would have it as two servers. Yeah. Cool. All right. So, any questions before we finish up about everything we've talked about? Good? Awesome. All right. I will post these videos to the Google Drive as always, and we'll start code reviews after lunch.